Moving on from what we just covered, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a 3-column layout that is very similar to what we just did with a 2-column layout. So if the 2-column layout made sense to you, then you won't have any trouble understanding how we transform that exact same code basically into a 3-column layout. In this case, you can see that the structure of the page is very similar to what we started with our 2-column layout. Basically, this is what it looks like without any styles at all. In my code view, I have basically just surrounded the various portions of the page that I want to control independently with divs. So my div ID nav is exactly the same. We have our div ID content, which contains the main portion of the page, which will act as a fluid portion of the page. And then the new addition to this 3-column layout is that I have another div that I called div ID right column, and it basically is containing this last paragraph of text right here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to make some styles to style this. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually just copy and paste the exact same styles that we had in our previous exercise right on in to this exercise to get started with. So I'm going to begin by using the same styles, many of the same styles anyways, that we used before. So you can see that I've established an overall margin and padding of 0. I've assigned the font color and font family to the body tag. My H2 tag I gave a bottom margin. My paragraph tag has a font size and a bottom margin. And I've absolutely positioned the nav just like we did in the 2-column layout, and I'm using the same settings. And then I have some styles on the UL and the LI. So if I save my page and refresh my page, you can see that, what happened there? You can see that nothing happened. No, let's reload the page. Alright, let me just reload it out of Dreamweaver. Maybe it's not the right page. Okay, here we go. Anyways, you can see that this is what we have right here. So I have not put any styles on my content div yet, or my right div, my right column div. So we're going to go ahead and do those next. And this is basically how we started off in our 2-column layout. So let's go ahead and pick up by going ahead and styling our content div. I'm going to go ahead and type content, and inside content, let's go ahead and let's set our margin settings. So I want to go ahead and I want to set my margin settings to, and we'll start off with the same values we used before. 20 pixels, we used 0 for right, 0 for bottom, and then we went ahead and used 165 pixels on the left side. And I also added some padding just to give a little bit of spacing around the edges. And again, I'm using my shorthand right here of 0, 1.5 ems, 0, and 1 em. So now if we save and refresh our page, we can see that, oh, I forgot my hash mark here. Excuse me. You can see that now we basically have what we ended up with our 2-column layout. You can see that this last sentence down here at the bottom of the page is basically not following either of the specifications that we have established, and that's because that it's wrapped in its own div, the right column div, and we haven't put any styles on there yet. So let's go ahead and let's take this right column and move it over here to the right hand side of the page. Just like we did in our 2-column, my content column is fluid, so it goes ahead and it flexes depending on the width of the browser. And we will continue with this design to keep the content div fluid so that it flexes, while our left and our right divs will stay in actual size. So coming back here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a new style for my right column div. And let me just scroll this up so it's not squished at the bottom of the page for you. And what we're going to do is we're going to position this right column div absolutely. Same thing we did on the left column. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set a width value, and we'll use a width of 125 pixels. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set the top to 0, and I need to set the right property to 0 as well. Basically, when I'm doing something like this in a fluid design like this, when I have to position the right column I have to position the right column with a value of 0 to make it always position against the right edge of the browser. If I was doing a fixed width layout, then I could simply set a high left value to position the column. But since I want the column to be on that right side, it's really important that I set the right position value to 0. So that's what I've done right there. And I also set a position value of top so that it stayed to the top of the page. We're going to go ahead and we are going to set some margin settings here. So before I actually do that, let's just save and let's refresh to see what we have in our browser. And you can see that now, just like it did with the left column, it takes the right column and it brings it out of the flow of the content. So now what I need to do is I need to ensure that it isn't going to override these different settings, and I also need to push it down from the top and do some formatting on it. So I'm going to go ahead and use margin, and I'm going to use a margin value of 72 pixels for the top. I will go ahead and I'll use a right value of 15 pixels. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to set the bottom to 0, and I'm going to also set the left to 0. And the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and set a border top. And my border top is just going to be 2 pixels. It'll be a solid line, and we'll go ahead and we'll set our same color value that we used on the left side, which is this teal. I'm going to also add a border to the bottom, and I'm going to use the same values here, 2 pixels, solid, and my bluish teal color right there. So if we save and refresh, you can now see that I've actually pushed this down. I'm still having some issues with the content overlapping or underlapping behind this, and that's because I need to actually adjust the style of my content column as well. So let's go ahead and let's do that, and then we'll finish kind of dolling up this right column. To make the content accommodate the right column, okay, because the right column does always stay on the right hand side just like it's supposed to, but my content now doesn't realize that it's supposed to go ahead and recognize this right column. So I'm going to go ahead and make a slight change in my content style. I'm going to change the margin on the right side from 0 to 150 pixels. And what this is going to do is it's going to push the content 150 pixels from the right side of our browser. So if we save and refresh in the browser window, you can now see that the content is recognizing this, and there's no way that this is going to ever overlap. That middle column is just going to expand and contract according to the width of the web browser, while these two columns are going to stay fixed. So this is the basis of a 3-column layout. We'll add just a couple more styles to make this fit a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw some padding on my right column. So we'll add a padding, and let's put a padding of 1 on the top. We'll use 0.5 ems on the right. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave just another shorthand value. I don't know if we discussed this, but if you have, like, I want the values on the top and the bottom to be 1 m, and I want the values on the right and the left to be 0.5 ems. So I can just write it like this. It's going to assume, since I don't have 4 values in here, only 2, that the 1 m is going to it's going to assign values for the top and the bottom, and the ½ m is going to assign values for the right and the left. So I can come back here to the browser and reload, and you can see I've just added a little bit of padding, some spacing around here to make this a little more legible. One other thing that I want to point out is if you ever want to comment your CSS, which can certainly be helpful, you can use a /* to begin your comment, and then you're going to terminate your comment with an asterisk slash, and then whatever you write inside that comment is just kind of a note to yourself. So if I want to put, like, shorthand way of assigning top, bottom, and right, left. this can be very helpful because you can just do it right in the middle of your CSS and make little notes to yourself like why you did something a particular way, or if you're working with someone else you can go ahead and you can comment out your CSS. So you just basically have to add that / asterisk and then terminate with the asterisk / and you can put comments anywhere you need to within your CSS. So I'm sure you'll find that useful. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to change the paragraph style a little bit on that right column div. So I'm going to call right column P's, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set the padding on the left. And we'll go ahead and set a padding on the left of 0.5 ems. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set the font style. Oops. Font style to italic. And now if I save and I refresh my page, you can see that this is what we'll end up with. So this is an example of a real simple 3-column layout. Once again, we're starting really basic here. We are going to definitely add a lot more as we go on in the course as far as incorporating images and making things a lot more interesting, but it's fundamental that you understand the basis of this and you can build upon this and make far more complex HTML pages by using some of these techniques.